Hey, are you broken? The data's been all over the map lately. You look like you're still working. Ever since I started this new eating regimen, it's been hit or miss. Let's take a deeper look. Guys, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and do it in a very odd, interesting, and sarcastic manner. Today, we're talking about something that I noticed since I moved to a alternate day fasting regimen or protocol. My Oura ring data, which I hold to great value, has been off. And I'm thinking, has alternate day fasting got to the Oura ring algorithm? It looks like it's not broken, but the numbers have been quite bouncy. And I get it. But there's some interesting data, to point out, and at the very least, we learn a little bit more about what the Oura ring algorithm really cares about. So, a little background. Almost a year ago, I got the Oura ring, and it was love at first sight. Within the first month after it established its baselines, it was already providing tremendous value. Not going to cover everything here, obviously, because we're talking about if the Oura ring broke or the algorithm broke, but you can see all the cool features and a full breakdown of the Oura ring up here in a previous video. That being said, I've worn the Oura ring every single day, every single night for the past 10 or 11 months. Now, for the majority of that time, I followed an early time restricted feeding protocol. So that means for me, every single day I would start eating at 9 a.m. and stop eating at 3 p.m. It would be an 18-6 intermittent fasting protocol, but it's just shifted to an earlier time than the more generic later in the day eating. And I do this for a number of reasons. Again, you could catch it in this video. I'm not gonna waste a ton of time there because I wanna get into some data. So after doing early time restricted feeding for probably over, a year, probably a year and a half, in September, after some very cool data came out on alternate day fasting, I did a breakdown of it and then I started implementing it. So that first week in September, I started with my alternate day fasting. By the way, you can see the 6-week review here. Now this alternate day fasting protocol still kept the early time restricted feeding protocol involved. So it would look like eating every other day, and the days that were feeding days, I would eat from 9 a.m. and stop at 3 p.m. So the same early time restricted feeding protocol was intact. I just ate every other day. Now, yes, I did eat more on the alternate day fasting feeding days, but overall I felt good. I was feeling good and refreshed in the morning. I felt like I was leaning out a little bit, even though I was eating more on those feeding days. The only problem was the Oura ring was telling me different. I saw a very clear pattern that my readiness, or the main metric that Oura ring's algorithm provides you every morning, based on a number of different data points that it collects and analyzes, was just not in line with how I was feeling. It was substantially lower for the most part. So I wondered, is this alternate day fasting protocol messing with the Oura ring algorithm? So I took a look back at all of the data that was in my Oura ring dashboard since I started wearing it. And what we're gonna look at today is a comparison of some of the key data points that the Oura ring holds at high value to determining your readiness score, first over a 4-month period from the beginning of May to the end of August, where I was strictly doing early time restricted feeding every single day. Then we're gonna look at the month of October, where I was a full month in already of alternate day fasting. And then we're gonna compare it again to the month of May, which was a pretty good month according to the Oura ring. And I thought I had a good time in May. A couple of trips here and there, loose and relaxed, but we're gonna compare it to May, where again, it's just a single month early time restricted feeding. So we're gonna look at 3 different charts, and we're gonna go through those key data points that the Oura ring algorithm holds at high value while determining your readiness score. First, let's see what data points they are. So, published right on the Oura Ring website. What does Oura Ring track to help you measure your readiness? So here are the key contributors to how Oura Ring's algorithm calculates your readiness score, which again is that overall score of how ready you are to take on the day. So it looks into previous night sleep, your sleep balance, your previous day, your activity balance, any changes in body temperature, your resting heart rate, and recovery index. And we'll cover real quickly what data point is actually looking for, what's it comparing to, and things like that. So previous night, Oura gives you a daily sleep score. So sleep score is big here, and it wants it to be above 88%, or at the high end of your normal average. So that's something we will look at. Sleep balance. Oura compares the past 2 weeks of your sleep duration to your long-term sleep history and the amount of sleep time that is recommended for your age. The recommended time is 7 to 9 hours. Previous day. Yesterday matters. I agree. So Oura stays on track of any previous day's loads and guides you accordingly. So this obviously means if you went hard and heavy the day before and you were not fully recovered, it's going to tone down your readiness score and advise you to do less. Activity balance, based on a 5-day rolling window of your activity levels. Body temperature. So essentially the Oura Ring tracks to show you your variations, keep on track and see how you've recovered. Essentially you want your body temperature to drop a little bit to set the stage for optimal sleep. So that's what I'm assuming it cares about here. So resting heart rate. This is again, recovery index. Brings in the science here, scientifically proven measurement for establishing overall sleep quality, recovery, and health. Your resting heart rate on the lower side indicates good fitness. So again, you want your resting heart rate to be low. And staying on the topic of resting heart rate, we go down to recovery index here. And this is the timing of your lowest resting heart rate. So it is important in the Oura Ring standards and from an overall recovery standpoint that you hit your low resting heart rate earlier in the night rather than later in the night. So you can see right here, recovery index is one indicator of this balance. It shows how long it takes your resting heart rate to stabilize and reach its lowest point. An indicator of good readiness is if it happens earlier in the night, 6 hours prior to waiting. So this is what the Oura Ring, again, in this algorithm, we're talking about the algorithm here. This is what it's going to hold high value to. And you can see things that mess it up. Eating heavy meals late, drinking alcohol, exercising too close to bedtime can postpone the timing. And this has happened to me a ton of times. I've actually done, in that Oura Ring video, we looked at what drinking a couple of glasses of wine and stopping at like 6 or 7 does to a night's sleep. It's pretty crazy. And lastly, I don't know if they actually count this in the algorithm, but heart rate variability. This again is a data point for recovery. So heart rate variability indicates the variation of time in between the beats. When you have a high heart rate variability, that means there is more time in between each beat, and it's not beaten non-stop. A high heart rate variability means that your heart is nice, calm, relaxed. It's a sign that the parasympathetic nervous system is firing rather than the sympathetic nervous system, which would be correlated with a low heart rate variability. And that would mean your heart is just firing away. So again, heart rate variability indicates the variation between heartbeats. This is something that the Oura Ring looks at. It provides every morning. I don't know if it's actually into the algorithm though. It puts it here, but it doesn't have it up as one of the main bullets. I guess it fits under the recovery index. So that's what we're looking for. Now let's look into the data. And this is the 4-month span. So we are looking from the beginning of May all the way to the end of August, right before I started the alternate day fasting experiment, which I'm still doing. I'm actually on a prolonged fast right now. I'm in day 5. Feeling pretty good. I think day 5 has been the easiest thus far, but that's a whole nother, story. I'll probably do a video on that. You could see my other prolonged fast up here. 170 hours or so. So readiness score. So this is the score we're talking about. This is that overarching score it gives you every morning. And you can see, and I tried to align, just real quick, I tried to align what data I can pull in charts to those bullets. So I think I did it, as close as possible. There may be a couple of data points that I should have in here that I'm missing, and shame on me. But readiness score, so an average readiness score of 81 over that 4-month span. And we look at the next important data point there was sleep balance. So Oura Ring gives you a sleep score. It's comprised of a number of different things, including your stages of sleep, how much sleep you got, your sleep efficiency, your sleep latency, things like that. So overall, you see a little variation here, and you see like some big dives, and those were nights where I probably wasn't, paying good attention and things like that, or had to stay out late. It could have been a wedding, things like that. So sleep score was 82, pretty good. Activity score for this 4-month period, not too bad. I move a lot, I exercise a lot, big into fitness. You could just look on the channel. I'm not gonna call out any specific video. A lot of fitness content. Swing a lot of kettlebells, I'll just say that. So activity score is pretty good. It was 91 throughout. For some reason, the beginning of May, maybe I was slouching a little bit, but 91 for the most part. Temperature, deviation, the highs and lows here, it got down to negative 0.6 Celsius. My core body temperature got down on July 5th. I think I was actually in a 5-day fast right there, but the most it's got up is 0.3 degrees Celsius. Average resting heart rate, here's that recovery index, 52 beats per minute, with a max being sometime in June where I actually had 66 beats per minute. And it got as low as, it looks like 46 on Saturday, August 17th. And your low resting heart rate. So here again is the low beats per minute that I hit when I was sleeping. Average 44, high again on that day in June, 53, and low was about 40. And then we hit lastly heart rate variability, and it was an average of 99. Max at that point was 154 milliseconds, and those low nights, let's see, 57, 58, which isn't great for me. And with things like low resting heart rate and heart rate variability, you're looking for relative change. Everyone's different. There's no perfect score. It's all about how it changes from your exact baseline. So that's what really matters. And we're not saying that all the data that's collected from this little ring is, picture perfect and accurate. But again, it's a good way to look at relative change, because if it's inaccurate, like I've talked about in other videos, if it's inaccurate, at least it should be inaccurate consistently. So this was the 4-month period. So let's look at October. And this is what I was worried about, the 72 readiness score. I felt, like I said earlier, that the readiness score was, relatively lower for the month of October. And I did a little travel, but for the most part, things were consistent. The only major change was the alternate day fasting protocol. And you can see by the waviness of this chart. So look at the readiness score, 82, 79, and then we start seeing big jumps. So essentially, I'll save you from having to guess. Essentially, my readiness score was high after nights of my fasting day, and then it was lower after nights of my feeding day. But on average, it was lower than my 4-month trailing average, I should say. Sleep score, a little lower as well, 77. Now, here is where I'm thinking, the Oura Ring algorithm could be a little funky, because generally speaking, I felt very good and refreshed most mornings, whether it was after fasting or whether it was after eating. And again, remember, I stopped eating early. I stopped eating around 3. So hopefully that means that I was able to digest all my food, and while I'm sleeping, my body's not pumping blood to my stomach to digest, a ton of food and take away from the regeneration and recovery that it should be doing when I am sleeping. So it does and doesn't correlate with the fasting and feeding. I had some really good days, and I think this actually, a couple of bad days. Like this was after a wedding. And I don't know why I'm missing it here. But that was sleep score. So another activity score, I was pretty active, 87%, in the 90s a lot. Temperature deviation, max was 0.3 Celsius, low was negative 0.2 Celsius, and this directly correlates, as you can see, it's bouncy again, it directly correlates with me fasting and not fasting. Here it gets interesting. So my average resting heart rate was 47, which was lower than my 4-month trailing average, which should be a good thing. And as you can see, it is very, very bouncy. And that is directly because of the eating and not eating. And you want it low. Remember, you want it low. You can see on eating days, I was definitely higher, and on fasting days, I was definitely lower. But for average, and on average, I was lower than my 4-month trailing, which should make a difference in my readiness score, right? And then lowest resting heart rate, this is actually very interesting. So it was 42 beats per minute on average. And as we look on the dailies, I was in the 30s quite a bit. 38, 40, and this, again, I hit my lowest after a full day of fasting, and it was definitely higher after that day of eating, even though I stopped eating at 3 p.m. So this tells me that my body was still working on digesting food, even though I finished eating, rather early in the day. And that might be why I'm getting knocked a little bit on this readiness score. And then lastly, the average heart rate variability. This follows that same bouncy pattern. It's higher, meaning I'm more rested on days or nights after fasting. And it's lower on days after feeding. So again, that tells me my heart was working a little harder. I was probably pumping blood to the intestines to help digest. That's my take on it. But overall, average heart rate variability was higher over that course of the month to my 4 months trailing. This is where it gets a little funky because I've got some positive average data points, but I think the highs and lows and the bounciness is impacting the readiness score, even though I felt pretty damn good. So let's compare this to May, which was a good month. All right, we are in May. Like I said, it was a good month. Readiness was rather high. It was 88, and it was pretty damn consistent. I was in the 90s for almost a week, which is wow. Wonder what I was doing that week. Wow. Overall, the readiness score was pretty good. The sleep score was good too, 86. It was better than my October alternate day fasting month. Activity score, like I said earlier, or like I showed earlier in that 4-month running trailing average, it was low for some reason in the first, 2 weeks almost of the month. But it definitely picked up later in the month, so it was 82. Not that great. Not bad, but not that great. The temperature change, looks like the low was negative 0.4 Celsius and the high was 0.3. So here is where it gets interesting too. I know my sleep was better. I don't know if activity, we'll chart this later. We'll show the comparison once we're all done. But average resting heart rate was actually higher than the October month. So this is that recovery index, early time restricted feeding all the way through, mostly in the 50s. When we go to low resting heart rate, it was an average of 45, which again was higher than the month of October. Or we're saying that it has something to do with the recovery index. So interesting. And the low here was 43-ish. Let's see, 43, and the high was, in the 49. Heart rate variability, 96 milliseconds, again, lower than my October alternate day fasting month. And remember, you want a higher, for a good recovery, you want a higher heart rate variability. So what did we get up to here? The max was not too high, 121, 125, 125, and the low was 76. Just going through this data had me kind of wondering, does alternate day fasting and the big swings that you see from a daily perspective affect the Oura Ring algorithm to say that you are less ready than you actually feel, because that's how I was perceiving it. We'll take a look at a quick comparison chart right now. So if we look at my little nifty chart here, we see all the data points that Oura Ring uses to build that readiness score on the left. The readiness score, the sleep score, activity score, temp change, average resting heart rate, average low resting heart rate, and average heart rate variability. On the top, we see the 3 periods of time that we looked at. May through September, that 4-month trailing period with only early time restricted feeding. October, which was alternate day fasting plus early time restricted feeding, and May, which was a good month, time restricted feeding, early time restricted feeding. For the readiness score, May was the highest, and for the sleep score, May was the highest. October, alternate day fasting came in last in both of those. Activity score, the 4-month trailing average one, then followed with alternate day fasting, and then just standard early time restricted feeding. Temp change, nothing crazy here. Average resting heart rate, here is where I wanted to look into. This is the recovery index. And as you can see, alternate day fasting kicked ass on these 3 key data points: average resting heart rate, average low resting heart rate, and heart rate variability. Coming in with lows for average resting heart rate and low resting heart rate, which is good. It's a sign of great recovery. And higher on heart rate variability, which is also good, a sign of great recovery. So this is my beef with the Oura Ring algorithm. Hey, did you do something? Did you move? Or is it just me? Okay, it might just be me. I may have had a minor data loss issue where we're gonna have to refilm this in the apartment. No biggie. So, in conclusion, my little buddy right here isn't broken, but this data and this analysis proves to me what I should have already known, but you just kind of get complacent and you accept things, is these things are imperfect. And here I will make my public service announcement to everyone out there who is using a wearable. First and foremost, kudos to you, because you are taking initiative, you are investing in your health, you're investing in learning about your body and gathering more and more data to see how you can manipulate future actions to benefit you. And that is awesome. All that being said, we need to take all the data that we ingest on a daily basis from these wearables with a grain of salt. Because, like you just saw, the data points they look at, the algorithms that are crunching all the numbers, can be imperfect at times. And even though you may feel awesome, your wearable may say something else. And that's where you cannot let data that you're looking at an app on your phone or on your computer dictate the course of your day, thus influencing your mood, your energy, etc., etc. Whether it be the Oura Ring, whether it be Whoop, whether it be the Fitbit, whether it be the Apple Watch, whether it be a Garmin, it is so important to use these as a tool. A great tool when you're starting out and you need to learn what you don't know. Everyone knows the phrase, I don't know what I don't know. These are awesome tools to get you going. But after a while, and after you're able to correlate data on your wearable to how you subjectively feel, you should be able to wake up in the morning, realize how you feel, and accurately predict what the data on the device is going to say. Like I said before, these are a tool to learn your body and learn how changes you make in your daily routine, whether it be changes in diet, exercise, your sleep routine, or even things such as drinking at night, can affect you from a biological and physiological standpoint. And that is super valuable. But you can't overthink things. And you need to know that you are always in control. You're going to own it, and it really comes down to how you feel. So I hope this was informative. I hope you got some good info out of here. I certainly learned a lot going through this data. I hope this gave you a look into being a little more of a skeptic on some of this data and understanding that it is useful in certain scenarios and it can't dictate your day. It's all about how you feel. Speaking of feelings, I'm feeling like I gotta go break this 187-hour fast, but more on that next week.